Roger, opening. Neil, this is Houston, loud clear. Radio check and verify TV circuit breaker in. Clear. Radio check and verify TV circuit breaker in. Roger, TV circuit breaker in. Houston, Roger, we copy and we're standing by for your TGV. I'm going to pull it down. Houston, the Mesa came down, all right. And we're getting a picture of it.
Has there ever been a historic figure or culture that has had extraterrestrial contact or origin, from your knowledge, from your vast years of study? Is there one figure who stands out above them all?
All these volumes along here are classical Greek studies, and this shelf here is on Pythagoras. And there's about 50, 60 volumes on Pythagoras here. This is a biography of Pythagoras by Peter Gorman, published in England in 1979. And he records in here that the Pythagoreans in general believed that all the planets in the solar system were inhabited, the dwellers on the earth being the most backward and pernicious of the lot. The farther one went from the earth, the more perfect the beings of the other planets and stars became. And Pythagoras and Plotinus went so far as to say that the beings who dwell in the distant Milky Way are almost disembodied intelligences and possess a very tenuous physical body. And that, as we have seen in the biography, the classic biography by a disciple of Plotinus, Jamblichus, was that Pythagoras might have been one of the superior beings who inhabited the moon or beyond. And the more intelligent beings inhabit the regions beyond the earth, and if someone can purify his psychic vehicle, consisting of an intelligible substance akin to light, but on earth is commingled with other elements, if he can purify that back into a superlight, he can journey to the stars and beyond to join these intelligences. This is the fundamental reason for all the purifications of the Pythagorean way of life and philosophy, to return to the ether where one can attain a cosmic divinity.
When I was 15 years old, my father introduced me to the practice of meditation, going inside myself and sitting and listening to my breath, feeling my breath, and becoming more aware. By the time I was 18, I was practicing every single day. I'm now 45 years old. Meditation is not about just trying to blank your mind out. I mean, when you go inside, the idea is to quiet down, remove yourself from all the sounds outside and the distractions, and go inwards. Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, "Recognize what is plain and in your sight, and that which is hidden will reveal itself to you." Meditation is about becoming more aware, not about just blanking out the mind. We start with the practice of watching the breath, something that is very ordinary. Just like Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, recognize what is plain. And what is plain is the sensation of breathing, of touch, the sensation of the skin. So when we meditate, we start with the awareness of the breath, and then we move over the curvature of the head, the eyeballs, the temples, the ears, very, very slowly. In fact, you can spend half an hour just exploring the curvature and the sensations in the face. And that increase of awareness, as we become more aware of our own body in the here and now, it makes us more aware on a much more profound level. The hidden, the spiritual, starts to reveal itself to us. And then, through the practice of prayer and alignment with our master, or with our spiritual teacher, our deities, for me it's Jesus Christ, that aligns us to a higher power that guides us on our daily life and in our actual state of meditation. The ultimate goal of meditation is to experience the awareness of God within ourselves. Jesus said, "Seek the kingdom of heaven first, and everything else will be added unto you." Once we're in a state of communion with God and bliss, we are flooded with the joy and the rapture of the Holy Spirit, of God consciousness, and we recognize that in all things. This is the greatest form of success, to actually feel the presence of God. And if our mind becomes aware enough on a really deep level, God can begin to give us gifts and teach us. For me, the ultimate teaching I ask for is first to be in communion with God, but then to find out how to travel, how to get off this planet, and how to explore the other star systems that are around us in this abundant, enormously vast universe that God has actually created for us. This is our playground. It was created for us, but we have to find out how to get off the planet, how to attain beyond light speed propulsion travel. Oh my God. What a headline.
And that nothing would be more patriotic than kicking our addiction to oil and ending the use of petroleum within our lifetime. And some people would say to me, well, Terry, look, there's no question that it's important to end oil pollution and oil and our addiction, but come on, patriotic? Why is it patriotic to do that?
Satisfied. If we destroy our planet, will science find the new one? Posted 12:59 p.m. EDT, September 1, 2006. By Don Stover, Popular Science, a just fun size. Popular Science, scientists are exploiting one of Einstein's predictions to find Earth-like planets around other stars. Planets that might even support Earth-like life. Let the evacuation plans begin. The way to spot Earth-sized planets.
Billions of dollars more in crop damage. You wouldn't think about that, but the reality is just as ozone and other air pollution attacks our lungs, it attacks plant matter. And so in the Central Valley here in California, we have farmers and the UC system that have documented that farmers lose as much as 1/3 of their crop every year to completely preventable petroleum air pollution. We have billions more in loss to our national monuments where air pollution is eating them away, and more to our forests. The list goes on, and what's the total? About $1 trillion every single year in subsidies to the richest corporations in the history of commerce.
If we destroy our planet, will science find us a new one? NASA is going on a search to look for another place for us to live because they know we're going to destroy this planet. I mean, they know it. They're not denying it. It's like, okay, we got to find a new home now to live on. Can you believe this? And you know what's the most amazing thing about this? They've searched hundreds and hundreds of planets in our galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy, and they can't find a single planet yet that we could live on. Not a single one. Because there's nothing else out there. I mean, this planet is so beautiful and it's so rare, and there's nothing else like it they can find. So where are we going to live? If there's nothing in our galaxy, we're going to have to go to our nearest galaxy. The closest galaxy to Earth is Andromeda. Andromeda is 2.2 million light years from here. That means if we travel the speed of light, it's going to take us 2.2 million light years to get there. Do you think we're going to survive as a species on this planet? And what do you see the imminent danger being?
Well, I think it's going to be nip and tuck if we survive or not as a species, and if we don't, we'll be probably taking out 70 to 90% of all living things on the planet by kind of injuring all of the ecosystems, the interactions between the living and non-living parts of the planet. So, as many people are guessing, and it's good scientific guesswork, there's perhaps a decade left to turn things around. I was just reading the other day, somebody had reduced it to 5 years, that if we don't really reverse some of the major damaging things like global warming and so on, that the damage would be too great to our ecosystems to ever recover from. And then we'll probably begin something like a 70-year period of extinction.
So you're looking at a mass extinction event, and you have a window, 5 years, 10 years, to correct our ways. What percentage of the planet today is living using sustainable technology or non-polluting?
Oh, just such a tiny percent,
It's less than 1%, isn't it?
Yeah, and you find a few places in Europe that are really, 20 years ahead of us in the U.S. They're really getting into wind, solar, tidal power, just moving away from fossil fuels pretty quickly. And unfortunately in this culture we've had cheap oil for so long that there's been little political motivation to do anything about it. So we're really still kind of stuck with some very old technology.
I mean, even in California, we just had Proposition 87, and it failed, to tax the oil companies to fund some of the research in alternative energy. But with California leading the nation at 22% renewable energy, 52% coal, we're getting most of our energy from coal, which is producing acid rain and global warming. What hope is there even that this country could become even 50% sustainable in that 10-year or 5-year window?
But I think the only hope is that a project much like the Manhattan Project would be instituted by a new and far-sighted president that would have not only the personal political will, but had the ability to get the people to believe the very real danger we're facing. I mean, it's like when World War II began, there were no recycling programs in the United States. Within 90 days, there were massive recycling programs because the citizens perceived we were in grave danger. And I think that is the primary job of our next president.
Where are we going to go next if we destroy this planet? Who will we rely on to save us? What are the ethical questions? If you believe in reincarnation or you don't, what will happen to 6.5 billion souls if we destroy this planet? If you are a Christian, Jew, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, you still have to face the reality. Global warming will produce an ice age. It will cause massive outbreaks. It will destroy us. Humanity is not willing to stop it. Even if we attain the Kyoto Protocol with population explosions, we are not going to beat global warming. It is going to beat us. Woo! Now the big question. The big question from here to Andromeda is, if global warming causes a mass extinction, we have an ice age, we have a massive outbreak from a virus. There's 6.5 billion people living on this planet. That means 6.5 billion souls. The question is, spiritually, religiously, where is 6.5 billion souls going to move? Where are we going to go next? Where are we going to live and incarnate next if we destroy this planet? So we think about it, there's 2.2 billion Christians in the world, and Christians believe in the revelations in the second coming of Christ. And when Christ comes after the great judgment, there's a new heaven and a new earth. So the earth is renewed. So we have this one belief. And then we have approximately 1 billion Hindus and almost 500 million Buddhists who believe in reincarnation, who believe that you actually psychically die and be reborn into a new body, and you keep doing that lifetime after lifetime over great cycles until you attain enlightenment. And then when you graduate in enlightenment, you attain the kingdom of heaven, and you're freed from the bounds and the chains of living on a planet. So, and then you have over 1.2 billion atheists who don't believe anything. So the question is, does belief shape and prevent us from saving our own planet? Do people who believe in reincarnation care more about the planet because they know they're going to come back? And do people who think, well, I don't believe in anything anyway, so none of this really matters, you just live and you die and nothing happens after that, does that shape their belief as to how we protect our environment and if we're going to make it?
Okay.
So the first question,
Yes.
considering global warming, sewage pollution, and the inconvenient truth of Al Gore, the proof that we may be heading towards a mass extinction event through either global warming causing an ice age,
Yes.
or 2, global warming causing massive virus outbreaks. What is the Tibetan Buddhist view on an exodus from a planet If we destroy this planet and we are psychologically and ecologically involved in its destruction,
Yeah.
where do 6.5 billion souls go?
Right.
You know, where do they find a new home if they see
Right.
reincarnation? And
Well, first of all, from the point of view of the Buddhists, the planet is not destroyed. Even though we're trashing it, we will come to our senses, and they predict, and it will not be destroyed. We may go through more hardships and so on, but a total ice age or a total meltdown or a nuclear holocaust is not going to happen according to their predictions. That doesn't mean that's so, but I mean that's what they think. So that's point one. I always thought, ever since the Death Star incident in Star Wars, where Obi-Wan and Luke are flying somewhere, and then there's a shudder and a disturbance in the Force, because the Death Star has actually destroyed a particular planet with many billions of souls on it, and Obi-Wan shudders, you know. But I always thought that in the Buddhist cosmology, there's billions and trillions and countless numbers of planets with humanoid beings on them. We've been on many other planets many times.
oh wow.
We will be on many other planets many other times, and we will therefore, all the souls, if a whole planet was destroyed in a supernova Death Star, the souls would be reborn other places. And we ourselves have been through many big bangs and big crunches, all beings, because life is beginningless from the point of view of the Buddhists. And so there's always more places to live. However, the sort of archangels, if you could say, the bodhisattvas, you know, the compassionate beings who are making a huge effort, although they didn't create the world, they don't create it, they don't control people absolutely. On a relative sense, they're quite powerful in their trying to arrange circumstances for living beings to be optimal for them to wake up and become themselves bodhisattvas and become enlightened. So from a Buddhist point of view, they will do a lot in their power, and they do have considerable power to prevent us from destroying ourselves. In other words, the way we behave as human beings, our governments and everything, and our chauvinistic, and especially male chauvinistic habits, having had nuclear weapons now for over 50 years, that we haven't killed each other totally or had a nuclear holocaust is itself a miracle. And the Tibetan Buddhists would argue this miracle is not really a miracle, it is the miraculous activity of enlightened angelic beings.
UFOs offer the best hope we have in understanding how to travel to another star system or another galaxy if we want to survive.
It's amazing to think that we're on a round little planet, 24,000 miles around, and that's one out of 100 million suns in our galaxy.
So what do you think about me going into space?
I think you're already there. Well, obviously, I remember you when we were kids, you had a very strong inclination to be an astronaut, probably at 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember you used to talk about it.
That's why I want to go into space, Michael.
There's a map. It's in one of these folders where we're going. Albany, there it is, Unified School District.
In 1967, 1968, I was 7 years old, and I went to Cornell Elementary School right here in Berkeley, California. On my way home from elementary school one day, I noticed all these people pointing up in the sky, and I saw that they were pointing up at a spaceship. I mean, a flying saucer. Everyone was like pointing up there, and I looked up for a full 20 minutes, and I could see this spaceship up there. And wow, that was the day that my life changed. That was it. Something really incredible was about to happen. I hadn't been to my elementary school in 40 years or so, and we came, down along the fence where I used to walk home from elementary school, Crystal and I, and we walked out onto the basketball court, the asphalt, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, there I was looking at this drawing. I mean, some kid named Mick, he wrote his name on the asphalt, had drawn a picture of what appears to be himself, a little boy, a human, you can see the shape of the head and the eyes, and right across from him is an extraterrestrial. I mean, it's really obvious we're looking at an extraterrestrial. It has a flat head and these big eyes, and I mean, wow. What are the odds of this? I mean,
I mean, we come into this place, and the first thing I think is, who did this? How could this be happening? Are other children in this school having experiences with UFOs and extraterrestrials? Is Berkeley and Albany, California a portal where they come through on a regular basis? Was I just one of many children who were visited by extraterrestrials in Berkeley that day, that same place? I mean, I looked at that drawing and I just didn't know what to think. It was like someone was watching. I mean, the odds that we would come to visit my elementary school nearly 40 years later, since 1967, and see this was 1,000,000,000 to 1. But then we think of where this UFO sighting actually happened. You know, it's taken me many years to realize this, but I mean, here we are in the East Bay between Berkeley and Albany, and right up on the hill, if you point right up on the mountain, there is the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, one of the top nuclear and defense and aerospace labs in the country, right there. And I look back and I think, this UFO sighting lasted for a full 20 minutes. A full 20 minutes that I saw. I don't know how long the other people, the crowds that were assembled, were looking at it. We're looking at a flying saucer. It looks like the Starship Enterprise up there. It's metallic, it's a saucer. It's hovering at maybe 3,500 feet, as big as a 747. I mean, who wouldn't see this? Who would not see this at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab? I mean, they have a full view, the most incredible panoramic view of the East Bay. Who would not see this? I think somebody in that lab has photographs or possibly even Super 8 film, and they have actually known about this for generations, decades, and they're hiding it from us. And why are defense labs? Why are there sightings at Roswell, the crash at Roswell? You have Los Alamos nearby. You have Trinity, the site of the first atomic bomb in 1945. We exploded the first atomic bomb in Trinity Site, New Mexico on July the 9th, 5th, 1945. And on that same day, that same week, in 1947, 2 years later, 3 UFO crashes occur on all sides of the Trinity Site. Did we tear the fabric of space-time? Is there a coincidence about the dates? I don't know. I mean, but something's happening here. Are extraterrestrials interested in following the progress of human science? I mean, why are they here in our defense labs, our military bases? Why? What is the connection? After the UFO experience, after seeing it, I remember going home and telling my mom, and I said I saw a spaceship today, and back then my brothers and I were Star Trek fans. I was a My Favorite Martian fan, watching it on TV. And my mom didn't really think much of it, but it didn't end here. For me, this was just the beginning, because very soon after, at 8 years old, I'm starting to dream about the UFO's propulsion system. It almost seemed like someone was trying to teach me something, like how these ships work, how they move from one star system to another, and possibly how they can travel from here to Andromeda. I don't know, but physics, dreams about one set of light spinning one way and one spinning the other way in the same axis, and it kept happening. The dreams kept occurring and recurring, and I kept dreaming about it. Why am I dreaming about this? I'm only 8 years old. I don't know why, but they're trying to tell me something. Who? Who? What? Where? When? What are they trying to teach me? And then I noticed that when I started to play hide and go seek and kick the can with my friends, and I'm counting to 100, I start looking up in the sky and counting to 100, and I'm looking at the specific star system, a legendary star system. I'm looking at these 7 stars known as the 7 Sisters, or the Pleiades, and I'm looking right at them, counting to 100, and I kept doing that over and over again. Why? Why was I tuned into the Pleiades star system? What was it about that star system in the connection to my UFO experience?
Hi, I'm Kylie Thorne.
I'm Danny Thorne.
I'm Bella Thorne.
I'm Remy Thorne.
Well, at first we went outside because we wanted to see, because it wasn't raining, and the wind, it was just like a light blow, because when you're in the eye, it's not really like a storm. It's more calm and stuff. But then we started seeing these weird lights that were like green, and it was kind of like lightning. and then it was blue, and then it was lightning.
And then it was red.
I know.
And they started flashing, and we were like, first we were inside our house, and we went outside, and it was really, really windy, like a helicopter was over you. Like, my little sister started going, ah! So it was really fun. And we were like, please let it rain, please let it rain. But then we were in the middle of the eye, which was pretty cool. And we
You were in
saw...
the eye of the Hurricane Katrina.
Yes, it was right over our lake. It was cool.
Yes.
Before it hit New Orleans.
Yes.
And so we went outside to go look at all the rain and stuff, and then it started getting too windy, so my mom said to come back inside. And then my cousin said he saw something flashing out there. So my dad went to check it out, and he started like freaking out. He was, oh my god, there's lights. And so we came out, and there was green, like flashing a couple times,
blue.
like 3, and then it would be blue twice, and it'd be once red, and then it'd go like in a pattern, like green 3 times, blue twice, and once red. And then like it started stopping for like 5 minutes. In each of the houses, like it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And the first house like had like red sirens going off inside, which was really weird. And then we were like, whoa, what was that? And then it went 1, 2, and then the next house. And my mom was like, ooh, maybe it's aliens. And first I didn't believe in them.
Yeah, we
I was
thought
like,
it was a
yeah,
joke.
right.
And we were all like,
And then
we
each
didn't
house
believe
started
in
doing it, but we were like one of the second houses, so we didn't get the light flashing on us. And she's like, maybe they're taking over their bodies, and I was like, yeah, right. And then we went back inside. And we went back outside because like we were looking outside through the window, and it was all foggy and like murky, except for like this one little hole in our window was just like if someone went like that, and it was all like foggy and stuff. So we were looking through it, and we saw something run right past my dad's like, there's someone in our yard, there's someone in our yard.
And we were all freaking
An alien?
out.
You think there was an alien?
It was all,
it
the
was
figure
weird, like,
was black.
It walks like this, and like its back totally was like that. It was sort of looked like a dog standing up, but it was a lot taller.
It was all hunched over.
Did
and
you see it, Remy?
Yeah,
What did he look like? Was it a...
it was some like black things you can't tell from a distance. We were in our house, but it ran across a lake that we had in our backyards, and it ran across it, but it was so fast we didn't even know what it exactly was. We couldn't see the exact form of it. It was just boom, just ran.
What did the UFO actually look like itself?
The actual
it was,
ship
we were on the top of our house on the 2nd floor, and we were looking at the little pole, and we saw right next to it these lights going round and round, red. And then when that whole row was done, it would go to the bottom, and then it would be red again and go around again, and then it would go back to the top.
What about the structure? Metallic?
It was like
it was
so
dark.
it looked like because you couldn't really see anything, but when the lights were flashing off, you could see that the lights were also like beaming off the surface, so it looked like a silverish metallic color, like an airplane sorta, and because you couldn't really see anything.
What about the shape?
The shape?
It was like a dome.
Yeah.
It was like this, and then it had like lines that.
And
just
it
went
did
straight.
different patterns, like it went da, na, 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 da, 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 and then
it
it'd
went
do it like 4 times, and then it went like this, and then it went whoop, da da da, whoop, da da
I was
da.
crying. We thought it was a okay. We were
Did you
sitting
see
on the
Mel Gibson's movie Signs? I mean...
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
that's exactly what the creature looked like.
Except it
he
wasn't
didn't
like
have
blue or
yeah, he didn't have long
a
nails.
weird face. He was just black.
So here we are in Seattle. This is, really where it all started. Ken Arnold sighting at Mount Rainier. When did that actually happen?
Well, in the latter half of June of 1947, Kenneth Arnold was out flying a Cal Air A2, a small single-engine prop job airplane, looking for actually a downed airplane. And when he was flying over the top of right around the top of Mount Rainier, and he noticed a bright flashing light. And he actually became worried that whatever this was, he wasn't going to run into it. When he started looking around, he saw 9 objects actually flying from the area of Mount Baker down towards Mount Rainier and then past. And he noticed that as they were flying past and in and around the mountaintops, they're actually flying and then they go on their side and then level again. And when they went on the side, it actually made a bright flashing light when the sun hit off of it. And that's where he's interpreting the flashing light came from. He was thinking they're going around somewhere about 1,700 miles an hour. And he thought...
1,700 miles an hour?
1,700 miles an hour. and he just saw them going in and around the mountaintops, and then around Mount Adams they all disappeared. So the whole thing lasted 2.5, 3 minutes. But that's really the first sighting of what they were
in American history, really?
In American history, yeah. As a saucer, he didn't. The term flying saucer really didn't exist till that moment, and it was coined then. When he saw these objects flying by, he was confused. There was a full report made about it. There was never anything understood, or they never were able to understand. They were never able to classify these objects.
On October 14th, 1947, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in the X-1 aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, just past the speed of sound. So, on June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold is seeing flying saucers, chevron-shaped flying saucers that are going Mach 2.5 times the speed of sound, just months later. So, what is going on here? I mean, is Arnold seeing flying saucers from another planet, or is he seeing black ops, military aircraft, but his descriptions, when you really look at his descriptions, chevron shape, flying saucers, I mean, we're really not looking at anything that we know of on Earth at this time. I mean, the X-1 was basically a rocket with wings on the side of it. It wasn't, the advanced F-wing fighters like we have today. And today we're not going much faster. And the F-22 beyond Mach 2.5 or Mach 3. I mean, we're still not really traveling that much faster. We just have better maneuverability. So did Arnold see a flying saucer? Then weeks later, United Airlines pilots in western Idaho report seeing the same flying saucers. I mean, it was actually because of them that the Arnold story became world famous. And then on July 4th in Portland, Oregon, 2 local newspapers report that civilians, everybody saw flying saucers over Portland. So it's like it just keeps moving around. The same UFOs are moving from one place to another. I mean, are they ours? Are they alien aircraft? Nobody really knows.
Military witnesses said they saw 9 UFOs over Edwards Air Force Base in California. Now, sometime on that same day at Roswell is when everything happened. Yeah, July 7th, 1947, sometime that day, a saucer crashed at Roswell, another one at the plains of St. Augustine, and another one off the side of the Trinity site in New Mexico.
About 15 years ago, my father was hypnotized, and a gentleman by the name of Neil Hubbard from the FBI hypnotized him. They really wanted to try to get an inside view of what my father saw in relation to the debris that he looked at that my grandfather had brought home back in 1947. Now, he was 12 years old at the time, and he has a pretty good recollection, and it's been in numerous books and on different documentaries. They thought this hypnosis might bring a new depth or new dimension to that information. In that process, over about 3 days, my father was hypnotized. My sister, Denise Marceau, was actually the person holding the camera, and they just went through the whole story, everything my father saw from moment 1 to it was all finished, and then some of the information, some of the things that happened to him afterwards, some of the stories that revolved around it. And these tapes have actually never been released. The public's never seen them.
No one has ever seen these tapes before.
Nobody's ever seen these tapes before, and we thought
these tapes, like your grandfather, Jesse Marcel Sr.
No, this is my father, Jesse Marcel Jr.
And your grandfather was
Major Jesse Marcel.
Major Jesse Marcel. So he was a major in the Air Force.
Right. He was actually major in the Air Force. My grandfather.
And he was the first person to.
And I wish I said it actually was a major in the Army. Right. My grandpa was a major in the Army. My father, who ended up having a military career at the time, was 12 years old back in 1947. And part of my grandfather retrieved some of the debris from the ranch, the Brazel Ranch, to have it investigated, to be looked at at the military base by his commander, Colonel Blanchard. And on the way back to the base, after retrieving some of the debris, my grandfather was so sure that it wasn't from this earth, that it was some extraterrestrial origin, that he thought he wanted to show it to his family. And so he actually went by his personal house on the way home, laid the debris out on his kitchen floor, and woke up my grandmother and my father to come take a look.
On February 25th, 1942, we thought we were being invaded by the Japanese. I mean, this is just after Pearl Harbor. There's UFOs flying over Los Angeles. We fired 1,400 rounds of munitions at these things all night long. And according to the Majestic documents, Army Chief of Staff at the time, George C. Marshall, who later becomes the Secretary of Defense and wins the Nobel Prize for the Marshall Memorandum. These documents state that they retrieved 2 crashed flying saucers, spacecraft from another world, and they retrieved them. Where did they take them? They took them to Muroc Field at Edwards Air Force Base. So there's something about this incident that suggests that at Edwards Air Force Base today, what is called Edwards Air Force Base today, Muroc Field back in 1942, they were reverse engineering alien spacecraft. In 1958, Gordon Cooper testified. He testified on film that he and his crew witnessed this, that a flying saucer lands at Muroc Field, Edwards Air Force Base, and sits there on the runway. They filmed this thing in the dry lake bed, and then it just takes off. Why would a flying saucer land in an unfriendly military environment? Why would they do this unless they had permission to land there, unless we knew about it? They actually filmed this. Gordon Cooper's crew filmed this. They developed the film. Cooper said he looked at the film. They sent it to the Pentagon, never to be seen ever again. Where did the film go? Somebody has the best photography of a flying saucer of all time, and it disappears into the black vault. What is going on at Edwards Air Force Base? Why were they there? Was it possible, I suggest, that reverse engineered flying saucers were being developed at Edwards Air Force Base, and Cooper was not supposed to know about it? He accidentally stumbles upon it, but he's not supposed to know. The X-15 was the fastest aircraft in the world. In fact, if it were around today, it would break all the records today. Between 1960 and 1962, just a few years after Gordon Cooper testified that they filmed a UFO landing at Edwards Air Force Base, Major Bob White, the fastest man alive, the first man to go Mach 4, 5, and 6, who broke all the speed records, and then he also holds the highest altitude record in the X-15, testifies in Time magazine on July 27, 1962. He testifies that he's flying the X-15, he's going Mach 6, and there's a UFO right outside of his window. A rectangular-shaped UFO, silvery gray, that's cruising along right next to him. Who else could it be? It's not the Japanese, it's not the Chinese, it's not the Russians. They're not flying aircraft over Edwards Air Force Base. We're the fastest people on the planet. Major Bob White is the fastest man alive. And he said there are things out there. There absolutely is, over his voice radio on the intercom. So here we have again another expert witness at Edwards Air Force Base testifying that UFOs are real in Time magazine. I mean, what can we say to this? Who can argue case point after case point at Edwards Air Force Base that UFOs are pursuing and following the progress of our aviation and space technology? A retired Air Force colonel once told me that UFOs are more classified than the atomic bomb. More classified than the atomic bomb. Why? Why is anti-gravity and zero-point energy more classified than the atomic bomb? Because the first country, the next country who figures out zero-point energy and anti-gravity is going to be king of airspace on this planet. Our F-22s and our fighter wing jets are going to be obsolete technology. I mean, fighters that have to use jet propulsion engines that have to make slow banking turns are not going to be able to perform against UFOs or anti-gravity technology that can stop on a dime and turn right at 90 degrees. They're just not going to be able to maintain themselves in a military sense against this type of technology. So this is why UFO technology is more classified than the atomic bomb. This is why the media laughs at this technology, and they're in on this somehow. They don't want you to know, they don't want me to know, that UFOs have crash landed in our atmosphere and in our planet, and we have retrieved saucers and we have reverse engineered the technology. So the very fact that they possess this technology and they're keeping it from us is good reason for me to go deeper into this phenomena, to find out how these things work. Ever since I was a little kid at Berkeley in California, when I started to receive visions of how the flying saucer propulsion systems were working, I started to look at footage of UFOs, look at video footage of UFOs, still photos of UFOs, and I could see over time, and this has taken me over 25 years to figure out exactly how these flying saucers were working, right down to the actual designs, the actual blueprints. I have designed a UFO anti-gravity, zero-point energy propulsion system. I have now developed the blueprints. I now am ready to test my own flying saucer. If I want to get from here to Andromeda, if I want to travel from Earth to another galaxy, to another star system, I have to find out how these things work myself. Do you believe that anti-gravity is more classified than the atomic bomb?
Affirmative, it is definitely classified.
Did Kennedy ever make an inquiry into the Roswell incident?
Kennedy was fascinated with the Roswell projects. He'd heard about it. He established his own group committee of people and personnel to investigate it and provide him full in-depth information on the projects that were going on out there.
So he knew about anti-gravity back in the late
Affirmative,
50s,
he did
early
know.
60s.
Yes, he knew very well what was going on.
So, do you think he got in any trouble? I mean, why would a president, I mean, even Clinton has made inquiries into UFOs. Why are presidents forbidden to trespass into the UFOs in the anti-gravity area? Even presidents.
Well, with the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, it's on a need-to-know basis. You need to know, they'll let you know. You don't need to know whether you're the president, the congressman, it's irrelevant. The key is you're assigned to this job, this area. No one outside that area has any information. Any information released, your history.
Yeah. All right. Do you believe any of the UFOs we're seeing are ours, that are the United States military?
Negative.
Not?
No.
You believe they're extraterrestrial?
I believe there's something out there, yes.
Yeah. The graviton is the missing particle in physics. Nobody knows where it is. If we could find it, perhaps we could alter the functions of gravity and we could produce anti-gravity generators.
My name's David Sarita, from the planet Jupiter. 1968. No, actually August 21st, 1961. My spaceship crash landed in the prairies of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I was heading for Berkeley, California. I was trying to get into the 60s scene with, free love and the free sex thing. But the ship crashed, and I got to get back to my home planet. Got to get back to Jupiter. So I decided to get a job. I heard there was no ozone layer down on this planet, and they had pretty much cut down all their trees. So I took a job. I wanted to be a tree planter. Since about 1980, the day that Mount St. Helens off, I started planting trees when Mount St. Helens blew up. That was my first contract, and I've been out here ever since. It's the year 2003. I've been planting about 20-something years. I planted over 250,000 trees. I'm trying to make enough money so I can get some of the parts I need for my spaceship to build the thing. Now, the problem is, see, in order to get a ship to fly, you need to defy gravity. See, everything falls down. My shovel falls down, my tree falls down, everything goes down. Now there's only one thing going up right now. You can't see it, but there's only one thing. And what it is, it's photons. Particles of light are bouncing off the Earth and going up into space. So, in theory, if I could turn this rock and into light, into actual light, it would levitate, and I could build a spaceship and get myself back to Jupiter. Now that's my goal. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure this out. In 1968, when I was a little kid in Berkeley, California, I saw my first UFO, and ever since, I'm a believer. I believe I can build this ship, and I believe I can get myself back to that planet, but I think I got about another 1 million trees to plant. I got a lot of time to think out here all day, hot sun, bugs, and it inspires me.
I believe I've actually found the graviton, the missing particle. Here's where I think it is. If you look at the proton in the center of the atom, which has a positive charge on it, and you look at the electron itself, and the electron is spinning counterclockwise. And then the anti-electron, the positron, is spinning, and if they both have the exact same radius, a radius is the distance between the center of a circle and the periphery, or a diameter is the distance all the way across. If they both have the same diameter, the electron spins counterclockwise and the positron spins clockwise. They're going to collide right here in a single orbit. which means they would annihilate and the atom would never exist. The fact that they don't means that they must have different diameters or wavelengths in order for one of the particles to pass without crashing into the other one right here. And if they have different wavelengths, that means they have different frequencies, because if you have a particle spinning with a certain velocity, particular velocity, around the circumference of the atom, and one of them has a shorter diameter than the other. The one in the shorter diameter is going to be spinning in a higher frequency around the atom than the one with the longer wavelength. It's going to make the longer wavelength is going to make less orbits per second than the shorter wavelength one, which would mean there is a differential or difference between the electron-anti-electron pair in actual energy. Because when you convert the frequency of a particle wave function into actual energy through a Max Planck formula, energy is equal to HF. You'll find that frequency transfers, wave function transfers into actual energy. So that means that between the particle-antiparticle pairs, there's a differential or leftover energy. And that leftover energy would be so weak, it would be such a small amount of energy and so weak it would be almost indetectable, which is why I believe physicists have not actually discovered it today. And if we actually look at actual photographs of electron-anti-electron pairs taken in bubble chambers, we can see by looking at them that both of them actually have different wavelengths. They have different wave diameters, which means that I'm right. There is actually a differential or leftover energy between the two pairs. And that, I believe, is the reason for, in UFO generating systems, why you have one field spinning clockwise and one field spinning anti-clockwise.
And it did different patterns, like it went and then it do it like 4 times, and then it went like this, and then it went like that.
In crop circles, you have one lay of grass spinning clockwise and one lay of grass spinning anti-clockwise.
I'm Barbara Lamb, and I have been researching crop circles in England since 1990. So at this point, I've had 16 consecutive summers of crop circle research in England. I've been into literally hundreds of crop circles during those years. And I am particularly interested in the lay of the crops right down there on the ground, as well as the overhead view of the crop circles. In this particular crop circle in early August in a place called Garsington, Oxfordshire, England, it was a very interesting spiraling of the crop, the wheat crop. You've got this portion spiraling along in a raised aspect. This is spiraling in a counterclockwise direction. But in the center of that portion of the circle, the crop is spiraling in a clockwise direction. And around the raised ridge, this crop circle is spiraling in a clockwise. So you have clockwise, counterclockwise, and clockwise again, all in the same circle of a larger formation. In this crop circle, formed the night of July 27th, 2005, at a place called Avebury Manor in Wiltshire County, England, was this extraordinary formation, which is called a quinquux or quintuplet formation, with the center circle and the 4 satellite circles and even more satellite circles, all in very even proportion. The extraordinary feature about this on the ground is that in the center circle, the wheat is laid perfectly, evenly in a clockwise direction. However, there's also a band of other circles laid within that very same circle, and these 19 circles are laid in a counterclockwise direction. In that same center circle, the band, or the row of counterclockwise circles, is depicted here with details counterclockwise, 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 and so on all around in this extra band of counterclockwise circles within the clockwise larger circle.
If we look at this first crop circle, we can see that this literally looks like a flying saucer. I mean, it's disc shape, it has this three-dimensional quality, and as we look inside of it, we can see it's almost as if a lid is lifted off the top of the saucer to reveal what is inside. I believe, after studying the effects of subatomic particles in bubble chambers, that we are seeing a language in crop circles that is reminiscent of quantum physics. The language is actually teaching us how to transform mass, cancel out gravity, produce anti-gravity, and eventually travel faster than the speed of light to visit other star systems. I literally believe that that's what the message is. In crop circles, you have one lay of grass spinning clockwise and one lay of grass spinning anti-clockwise. The dual function is always there, but the differential, right in here, the differential, one is higher in frequency than the other, is where I believe the graviton actually is. Have you ever thought of actually building a craft itself that could levitate?
Oh, yes. Actually, I have a lot of ideas on that. I think the potential in that is pretty high.
Actually, what do you think would happen if you built a flying saucer and you started flying around Vancouver?
If I built a flying saucer flying around Vancouver, I am sure that, oh my, there'd be a lot of excitement.
Oh yeah.
I mean, big excitement. And probably the police and everybody else again would be chasing me down.
Well, they would think it's extraterrestrials.
And they might start shooting at me.
They might start shooting at you, and then they'd find out it's you. Oh my God, it's John.
It's John, and what do we do now? He actually did it. John Kenneth Hutchison actually built a flying saucer. I think the realm of it is quite probable, since I was studying some of the older experiments done by T. Brown, Podolinoff, and those folks. And what's interesting about Podolinoff is that the anti-gravity effects seem to go right down to the Earth all the way up to an unknown area.
Has anybody ever threatened your life? I mean, as far as like trying to possess what you have here, I mean, seeing it as a threat, has anyone ever, like, threatened you and said that, you're on to something and you're not allowed to be doing this?
No major threats. Mostly people saying, well, you should work for the U.S. government. That's a lot of emails I get are like that. And that they're ready and willing to stand by and give the funding out. But I've never been threatened. I've been also approached by religious groups saying, well, my duty is to continue on with this and make it a practical system.
Yeah, I mean, if you can levitate an iceberg, you could end a drought. I mean, you could land in a dry lake bed, you could change architecture.
The work that Hutchins has been doing, he has Tesla coils, he has Van de Graaff, and he has, very frankly, static electricity generators. Notice that data doesn't have to make sense.
Right.
Data just has to be truthful.
The truth.
That's right.
It's more important than proving Einstein right or wrong.
Okay, now his data showed everything from a chocolate milkshake snaking toward the top of his room, to bowling balls floating in the air. To I have all his data, I've been following it. I am a senior scientist from Lockheed Martin. I have been a senior research engineer for Howard Hughes, Texas Instruments. Nevertheless, we've been working for some time now in order to determine where the next energy levels are going to come from. Now by that I mean we aren't talking about wind or solar or even atomic. We have other formats of energy that that we've theoretically proven that are available. Not only that, but there have been significant developments, and many times the things that we look at and call UFOs are really some of the developments that we've been involved with.
That Lockheed has been involved with?
Looks pretty good to us down.
So are these some of the UFOs we're seeing you believe are ours, that are United States military?
Well, Area 51 is literally where the majority of the things that we call the black program were developed, and many times sightings would occur directly associated with them.
So you had a number of sightings, and then that prompted you to go to Area 51. And
yeah, a friend of mine is a filmmaker, and he was thinking about writing a film on UFOs, a serious film. And so he and I had heard of Area 51, so he said, let's go there. And so in January, I forget what year it was, maybe 98, something like that. I've honestly forgotten. Is that he and I packed up our video camera and we drove over there and found everything easily and set up our video camera on a tripod and pointed it at this range of mountains that we knew, behind which was the so-called Area 51. And it was very cold, there was snow on the ground, and as soon as it got dark, this big round orb of light pops up behind the ridge and moves around in a very strange way with right angle corners and disappearing behind a ridge and coming up somewhere else. Absolutely silent, a huge round orb of light. Very weird. And driving down there, and this big same orb of light pops up over the ridge and starts following our truck and was close behind us. And just,
how big do you think this thing was?
I don't know. When something happens that suddenly and unexpectedly,
you don't think about it.
You don't say, let's see how big that is. I don't know. I'm guessing it was 20, 30 feet in diameter, but it didn't emit any beam of light. It was this big glowing light, and it followed a truck down. We were speeding down trying to get away from it, and it got a little bit behind us, so we turned off the headlights and just four-wheel drived it into the desert, hiding behind some big yucca trees and things, and then the light flipped off.
As I conducted tests, every now and then nature would not give us what we wanted, but it gave us something else.
Something else.
And I would sweep it under the rug because it didn't match theory.
So
and after a while I said, that is not honest. That is not proper. You must record the data properly. And indeed, once you record the data, then you start modifying the theory. Einstein's work is only a slight modification of Newton's work. But we do understand that Newton's work has, Newton's work, for example, Newton says anything that's in motion tends to remain in motion, right? Okay, so I have something, and I'm taking it around counterclockwise. And see it, and what Newton said is true. He just wants to go around and around and around and around and around. This particular thing is called a celt. It's clear plastic, there's nothing in it. Okay, now I'm going to take it around clockwise. It says, no, I don't want to do that. It's just like my children. I will do it my own way.
How did it go the other way?
Precisely. A Newton's law.
Is that because of the rotation of the planet, or?
Well,
Can I try that?
You may. In fact, first of all, send it around counterclockwise.
Okay. And this is called a cell?
It is celt. C-E-L-T.
What's in it? Okay, there we go.
Nothing's in it. It's plastic. Okay, now take it around clockwise.
Okay.
And it says, no, and it goes back the same number of turns you said.
Oh, I've never seen anything like that.
Now go out stronger. I know. See, I'm looking for the exception to the rule. You have to, if you can use language, you really need to convert it into mathematics.
Yep.
And calculate what your theory would say that it would do.
My theory is, like I've looked at, and on that CD I sent you, in bubble chambers,
yes.
If you look at, they have a wedge sheet in this particular photograph. Mm-hmm. Super high frequency gammas strike the wedge sheet and through the photoelectric effect give off electron-anti-electron pairs. Mm-hmm. And there's two sets of pairs. And the electron has a longer wavelength and the anti-electron positron has a shorter wavelength, which means there's a differential between the electron and anti-electron pairs, which means one is stronger than the other if you convert it through a Planck formula or even Einstein formula. And that means one of the clockwise and anti-clockwise would the differential between them would be one is stronger in mass energy equivalent. The other, like for example,
well, take that. Yeah. Well, take that with you, and when you get together with your friends that agree with you, have them do the math. And I would like a copy of the math.
There's a differential. Hinton, tell me about your trip at Shasta. Something happened to you up there.
Come to Mount Shasta. It was just as clear. It was like Om Shasta, Om Shasta. It was calling me, and I had to go. I just jumped in the car and headed to Mount Shasta.
You heard a voice, or you just had a feeling?
A feeling. No, it wasn't a voice. I mean, I didn't hear a voice. I just kept thinking about it. Kept thinking about Mount Shasta. Just all of a sudden, I couldn't, stop hearing the word. It was like Om Shasta, Om Shasta. When I arrived, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was just, a full moon night. And it was just, this, moonlight is.
Were you alone, or were you with?
No, I was with a friend. We drove. I was with a lady friend. And we were on a journey, and we both had to go to Mount Shasta. Something we agreed on that, hey, I feel the same thing. I want to go to Mount Shasta. So we got there. She stayed in the car. I got out of the car, and I went over and I sat down. And I was sitting in like a yoga position, and I was just sort of sitting there going, doing some mantras, just sort of calling in the elements, Om Shasta. And I was playing with this Om Shasta thing, and I was like, calling the earth, wind, fire, and water, breathing deep, these elements, and getting in touch with the energy and and the atmosphere, just the whole aura that was happening, and I was sitting in this radiant light, and then the next thing I was, as I closed my eyes, and then when I opened my eyes, it was like this beam of light. I mean, I could see a circle of light around me. It was different than the silver, glowing, illuminating moonlight.
So, this is like a beam of light. I mean, you're talking about there's millions of stars up there. There's a bright moon, and there's a beam of light, and you're actually inside of the beam. I mean, is this thing coming from a spaceship? Is it from a spiritual being? Is it interdimensional? Can you see it with your eyes open, or is it inside of your mind? I mean, what's going on? Is this? What did you think it was?
And I looked up because I could see the peripheral. It was like actually created like a ring around me. You know what I mean? I could see like a glowing ring around me from the beam of light coming down and touching the earth, and it was just like just penetrating, just passing through me. And I looked up, and it was coming from straight above. At the time, I've never actually witnessed a UFO. That to me is I call it unidentified flying light, UFL. But it was like light coming from some source, and I imagine it coming from like my source star. Somewhere in the heavens is a star that shines on me. Like right now, the sunlight is shining right on me. But this was not just the moonlight. This was a different light source that was coming in, and it was more like a golden yellow. Yeah, I felt inspired. I mean, from that moment on, that triggered another, activation kind of for me. You know what I mean? It was like after returning back, I just got real prolific, and I was doing a lot of work.
I was on a camping trip with my girlfriend at the time, and we were camped up in what's known as the upper meadow at Lake Shasta. And we were sitting there around the campfire. Then from the northwest, from the mountain peaks, came these three craft. I mean, from nowhere. They just shot up right in front of us, came to a dead stop instantaneously, and just hovered there. Sat there for a good minute and a half. I don't know, plus or minus, who knows how long. It seems like forever when you're sitting there looking at it. And then all of a sudden when they left, they were like in a small V formation. And then when they left, they took off to their left, so that means they would have been headed in the eastward direction, and just shot off on a 90-degree angle instantaneously. You know, say from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. Just coming off the top of my head from what it would seem like, and nothing flat. If they were spherical in shape, they did have lights. I kind of really remember the blue ones. Definitely not FAA lights. I'm totally familiar with that. I'm a pilot, certified in 22 different types of aircraft, so I'm very familiar with helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, and as so far as what they can do, particularly in maneuvering. And there is nothing I've ever seen or heard of or read about that can maneuver from 0 to an unknown amount of speed off on angles like at 90 degrees. And these three did that. They sat there for a good minute, maybe even a little bit longer, before they took off. And they kind of they made a left turn in formation, and it was just instant. It was a 90-degree turn and nothing flat, without starting up, without. I take and compare that to a car. Not too terribly long ago, I drove one of the new Bentley sport cars, 550 horsepower, a little two-seated car, and they boasted on the fact that that car can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. If a car on the ground can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, fighting the forces that hold it back in aerodynamics and in gravity, imagine a craft doing from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour, and instantly, right now, bang. Can you even begin to picture sitting in a car and going from a dead stop to 60 instantaneously with no time lost in between? The thought is, mind-boggling. I believe it. I saw it.
Inertia is the enemy of movement. Anywhere you want to move, you encounter inertia. In physics, inertia is both a body in motion and the tendency of a body to resist acceleration. So inertia is the #1 problem to move from here to Andromeda, to go to the speed of light and beyond. There are 5 major modes of transportation that human beings have discovered. We actually haven't discovered the 5th. We've discovered 4. And the first is we propel in our land vehicles, our cars. We have a little propeller in our engine that drives the drive shaft, and we move forward across landscapes. And the problem with trying to get anywhere moving over landscapes is sometimes you can be on flat ground, and then you have to move over the curvature or waveforms of mountain ranges. So we encounter inertia in the form of resistance of the actual geography of the landscape itself. So the problem in getting from here to Andromeda is inertia. Our cars move over the landscape, and the landscape inhibits us from going forward in a straight line. So the next evolution that appears in the mind is how to get beyond moving over the curvaceous landscapes. The second revolution in human transportation was moving across the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. A flat surface, you get in a boat, and you either use the wind power and you propel forward using the wind, and you're limited to the speed of the wind, or again you use a propeller drive shaft engine that propels at the back of the boat and fires out this thrust, and forward you go. But as you're going forward, what happens is the boat impedes upon the water. The water, which is a wave structure, pushes on the boat and makes the boat heavier. Water is the greatest way to explain Einstein's problem of reaching the speed of light, because everything else falls in the same fashion. You can actually see this happening. When you look at the front of the boat, it's pushing against the water, and the water is hitting the boat, and it's slowing it down. So what happens is the boat gets heavier. It actually weighs more. Its mass is increasing the faster it goes, because what it's pushing through is making it heavier. So when you have to apply more energy in the form of propulsion to go faster forward, and you go faster forward, the water makes you heavier and heavier and heavier, and pretty soon, when you really start accelerating the boat becomes so unstable, and it starts to shake and bashes against the waves, and the waves eventually crush the boat. Their mass is so great, as the boat is encountering that inertia, the waves will destroy the boat. So you can only go so fast through the water. NASA has already proven the goal of living sustainably in space. The International Space Station uses solar power, solar panels, hydrogen fuel cells. They collect their own water. They recycle their own waste. If they can do it in space, we can do it on Earth. We can copy them and build our homes and our vehicles exactly the same way. Okay, this is what we got to do to stop global warming. The average home produces 26,000 pounds of CO2s per year, which is the cause of global warming. The average car produces about another 23,000 pounds. So our cars and our homes are destroying the planet, so we have to revolutionize the car and the home. So this is our future home. This is what we can do with technology that exists today. We use solar panels here to produce 2/3 or pretty much all our electricity if you live in the Southwest or where there's a lot of sun. We store the electricity in hydrogen fuel cells or batteries. We can use wind to assist our electricity for our house, so you can have a little wind turbine up on your house. And then you use the electricity to run all of our lights, and we use energy efficient appliances, and we have these big windows here to let a lot of sun in. And then we can use these European solar hot water tubes that can heat hot water to 180 degrees. And that hot water gets stored in our hot water furnace, and we can pump it into our floors at night in the wintertime to keep the floors warm, so the heat radiates off the floor. So we've cut down on our heating costs, we've got free electricity, and here all of the roof architecture is designed to capture rainwater. The rainwater flows underground through this tube into this giant cistern where we can collect thousands of gallons of water. So we don't need to be wasting water. Water is falling from the sky. And if you live where there's snow, you just collect the snow melt. Now our car over here, we can see our actual car over here, we can now, Tesla Motors and Universal Electric Car Company, they all have these beautiful electric cars that look a lot nicer than mine does here, that you can recharge directly from solar power. So you can obviate the gas station. You don't need to be using gasoline to drive around. In fact, some of these new electric cars will do 250 miles on a single charge, and they'll go over 100 miles an hour. So what more do we want? I mean, this is it. This is the answer to getting off the oil companies and saving the planet. It's every one of our responsibilities as citizens on this planet to live sustainably. The technology is here. We can use energy efficient lighting in combination with that. But then, one day, forget the car. If we can figure out anti-gravity, get rid of these little wheels here, we got a flying saucer. We can have our own UFO in the driveway and recharge it with 0-point energy. So if we can tap into 0-point energy, we can be hovering off the ground and flying anywhere we want on the planet. What does that do to real estate? Well, if everyone has anti-gravity and you can live in Montana out in the middle of nowhere and be in downtown New York in 5 minutes in your own flying saucer, then land just opens up. All of a sudden, you don't all have to live together in these giant cities with these huge buildings all right next to each other. We can live out in the middle of the wilderness in our beautiful sustainable energy home and be in downtown New York or LA in 5 minutes. We can be in Hawaii in 10 minutes, and the whole world will change. So let's take a closer look at what's really going on. Somebody in the universe has figured out how to make flying saucers fly and go from one galaxy to another, and we can do the same thing if we look closer at this. We've got to look a lot closer at this. Wormholes are not feasible. They're pie in the sky physics. A wormhole
requires the negative energy, a negative energy deficit of 100 million suns for an entire year. There are 100 million suns in the Milky Way galaxy, our whole galaxy. You have to extract all of their negative energy for a whole year to make one wormhole big enough to fit a quarter through. What civilization is going to access all of that energy to make one wormhole to fit a quarter through? And if you want to fit your whole body through the wormhole, and then your whole family, and teleport to another dimension, you're going to need the negative energy of multiple galaxies. This is not how they are doing it. This is like a caveman banging his head against the wall and saying, I'm going to get through the other side of that wall if I have to smash my way through it. Wormholes don't work. Wake up, people. You have to find out how this is happening. We have to find out how to get to Andromeda, and we're never going to get there with drawing pictures of wormholes and telling ourselves that we have to attain the negative energy of hundreds of millions of suns. This is not how they are doing it. They are doing it by transforming the mass of their spacecrafts, and they're getting out of space.
A lot of people are doing nothing more than getting huge quantities of mass and see if they can get a gravity wave to cause things to move. Well, that isn't what we're talking about at all. So I wondered if gravity could be related to its cousin magnetism. And so I found that when I take two magnets together, I have some neodymiums around here that I'm actually afraid of.
They're so strong.
They can danger you. But anyhow, you take a magnet, you go to put them together and they go clunk, right? But you take one of them, move it around, and all of a sudden it doesn't want to go together.
The repulsive.
So I got, I ordered one at $5,000 a piece, with a 1/4-inch hole through between both of them, and I put a brass bolt and I tightened them down, forcing them together. And then I put them together in a thing that looks kind of like a rock. Okay, and then I got another one that didn't have magnets in it. And Galileo, in all his endeavors, he went up to the Leaning Tower of Pisa
and dropped
he dropped a big rock and a small rock. And his buddy down the bottom kept telling him that the large rock and the small rock arrived at the same time.
Well, in my left hand I have a feather. In my right hand a hammer. And I guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather for our falcon. And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that? That proves that Mr. Galileo was correct in his findings.
Well, I went up to in the Lockheed Building 501 by the side of escalators and elevators.
Oh, wow.
And I got 9 guys that were not educated and didn't have pre-opinions on anything. And I dropped my 2 rocks. And I said, what I would like you to do is, I told them what I would like you to do is I would like you to take whichever one arrives first, get it in your hand, and when I come down the elevator, hand it to me. Now they looked identical, except for...
So, and nobody knew what was inside?
No, absolutely not. All the 9 times that I tested it, it's as though the one with the opposing magnet field extending out 3 feet on each side. I actually measured
how big the field is.
How big the field was, and on each side of one rock, I had a total of 6 feet. At any rate, the other rock arrived first.
Which one arrived first?
The one that had no magnetic field in it.
So you were able to cancel out gravity to a certain degree. You were able to cancel,
precisely,
reduce the mass gravity effect.
Precisely.
By opposing fields.
Isn't that nice? You bet. And got 9 signatures, and I always skip.
You did that at Lockheed. What year was this?
Oh, at least 8 years ago.
This is the actual document of Boyd's where he proved that by altering the field in a falling body, the magnetic field, it
reduced its mass gravity equivalent and canceled out the effects of gravity to a certain percentage. And he did a building 500 drop test conducted from a height of 59 feet. The location is in White Solomon, Texas, and the time was 12:20 p.m. and this was in 1995, December 12th. Nobody knows this.
I know it.
So mass gravity is not, you can alter it.
Well, gravity within itself has to have, gravity goes through anything that is solid and anything like iron or anything else. But it has to have a magnetic component, which may be canceling out within itself. But as soon as it got around my rock, it all of a sudden recognized the presence of my rock.
One of Einstein's students tried to merge electromagnetism and gravity, and he rejected it. But he didn't have an experiment like you did.
No, I understand. I know that.
Yeah.
But see, nature never uses English. It doesn't speak. It doesn't speak any language. But yet it's talking to us all the time.
Right.
And the key thing is to identify what it's saying.
In Antigravity State Park back in 1995. All right, my oldest son Max drew this rendering here. He was 12 at the time. Shows lights here on the top and the bottom, and he shows it as teardrop shape. The others didn't see it as teardrop shape, but simply so large that the perspective down the side of the ship as it passed in front of us, so large that the diminishing horizon perspective came in, what I believe. On December 28th of 1995, we were camping out there at one of the remote campgrounds, and we were up on top of a little ridge and making peace between the kids who had just fought after dinner, and we noticed some lights coming toward us from the east, over from the Salton Sea, over the Badlands. And I figured it was a squadron of helicopters at first because the lights were some distance apart, kind of a reddish, yellowish, pinkish lights, and they didn't look like aviation lights, but nevertheless, I presume since they're flying over the desert, it was some kind of vehicles, plural. And when they approached us, after a period of about 5 minutes of coming toward us, we realized that it was one craft and not a number of craft, and the size of the craft left us pretty awestruck and pretty rife for an explanation of what it was, and the kids were a little scared, and we watched a mothership, I believe, as I've seen in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that size craft, we saw it fly right in front of us down the valley and disappear into the horizon. And it had a huge oscillating electrical sound. It stayed exactly the same velocity and altitude during the entire thing. It came right down as a straight line in front of us and then disappeared off into the horizon. Okay, this was on the 28th of December, 1995. And there were four of us on top of this little mountain ridge here, and the dog. Now the dog was also pegged on the craft, and as you can see, my youngest son has arrows indicating the direction of the lights. Okay, this was Nick Mosman. New Year's Eve day, I called the state park and asked if anyone else had seen it. The park ranger had relayed a story back to me that her son-in-law, who was a very straight arrow, she made sure she mentioned he was a straight arrow, had seen a large craft over the Mojave Desert. She took me seriously and took my number, my phone number. 3 hours later, a woman called me and left a message on my answering machine because I was out, and said that she had seen craft off of the same highway that I was camped off of, and I asked her if that was Thursday night, the 28th, and she said no, that was 1977. And I asked her how she got my number from 77 to 95. She said she was standing in the ranger's office when she heard the ranger discussing UFOs with me.
Does Lockheed Martin, or does anybody, possess working anti-gravity technology right now? Or are we still trying to understand how these ET craft are working? Have we reverse engineered the technology at Roswell successfully? Which would mean some of the UFOs we're seeing now that are silent and hovering.
I've given you the Lazar tapes, and that's as far as I can talk.
Okay. That's good.
It's only because I got the Lazar tapes from a White World forum.
Right.
And
but you can't say anymore.
Well, people kept encroaching on Area 51, such that Area 51 is now being moved to Tooele, Utah.
But here's one thing. This makes sense to me. If you can cancel out gravity in a falling body, and you can even reduce a percentage of the effects of gravity for aircraft, it would take less fuel. They would be more efficient, and they could hover with less energy, and that much I can figure out.
And the atmospheric edge of the Earth will be meaningless. Would you like to see a picture of the nuclear-powered aircraft?
Oh, yeah. What's the date on this one?
I refuse to say, but there is the nuclear pile that actually flew.
That hunk of junk right there flew?
It actually was in the belly, providing...
Oh, that was in the belly of that.
That's right. It's just like in the belly of a submarine.
Providing anti-gravity. So it's shaped like an aircraft. It's aerodynamic. So that we don't think that it's not using its wings.
Well,
I get it.
It has an energy source, okay?
I understand.
And it is staying in the and here's what it looked like down inside of the protective. It was.
And that's at Area 51?
No, much closer than we'd care to admit.
Oh, Texas. Well, I mean, Lockheed, the contracts here, was in the paper this morning. $27 billion in the last, couple of years. Most of the majority of the defense contracts are here in Texas with Lockheed. I mean,
well, certainly. That's why I don't mind having a retirement from them.
The third mode of transportation, the third great revolution was, with the Wright brothers, the invention of the airplane, you get out of this second strata called water and you go into air mass. You go into the air and you go, wow, this stuff is really light. I can really move now. In an airplane, you have the same thing. You have a drive shaft propeller, which we used to use in the old days. We used propellers, and now we have jet engines. And jet engines are essentially inverted propellers. Instead of spinning outwards, they compress air inwards, and they compress the air and it fires out of the back of the drive, and you see the afterburners and the jet is going forward. And the same thing happens with a jet aircraft as happens with a boat going through the water. As the jet moves through the air mass, its propellers have to turn faster and fire more energy out of the back of the drive. The aircraft encounters inertia in the form of drag or resistance on the aircraft against the aircraft. So the air actually has mass, it's not a void. And as you're moving through it, you get heavier and heavier and heavier, you encounter more and more instability, and you have to purify the design, and the wings have to become more and more, aerodynamic, and you can go faster, and eventually you get to this limit, this space charge limit, where the mass of the air is so heavy, it actually starts to create friction and heat and burns up your aircraft. When the X-15, Edwards Air Force Base in the 1960s, was going past Mach 6, they had these enormous heat problems on the aircraft, and the pilot starts to, heat up. The metal starts to burn, the circuit starts to fry. So when you move through air mass, you have this problem of inertia. And then you're also, as you're trying to leave the Earth, when the X-15 is trying to leave the Earth, gravity, this other force, is trying to pull it down, it's trying to hold it back. So you're fighting inertia, you're fighting gravity, you're fighting all these forces. And then when you want to turn right to avoid a collision with something coming at you, the turn produces G-forces on the pilot, incredible pressure and weight, and it knocks the pilot down. So you're limited. So what happens is you find out you can only go, maybe Mach 6 or 7 inside of the air mass, and today our F-22s don't even fly that fast anymore. So Crystal and I decided we went to Phoenix, Arizona. We actually went to Sedona first, where we had an actual UFO sighting, both of us. In fact, it was Crystal's first UFO. and this really bright UFO comes towards us, cruises over this mountain range, hovers for a bit, and then takes off in the background. That, I've never seen anything like that. Now that was, like, what do you call that? I mean, that must have been a UFO. I have to say it. It was, yeah, Jim, you should have seen this. It was like a big, I mean, it was like almost like a bow, disc-shaped kind of thing, and it just glue intensely. A minute later, you hear these thumping helicopter blades, you hear these military helicopters, and it's really loud. I mean, why, like seconds, less than a minute after a UFO sighting, are there military helicopters in the middle of nowhere? I mean, Blackhawks, the blades are thumping, so something's going on here. In the Nag Hammadi Library, in the Apocryphon of John, it says that after the proverbial fall from the Garden of Eden, when humanity partook of the fatal knowledge of good and evil, that we were cast to the lowest region of all matter. Not the lowest region of the universe, not the desert, not some forbidden landscape, but the lowest region of matter itself. So what is matter itself? If we look at the quantum level, we're just made up of atomic structures, of atoms, which when you zoom in even closer, atoms are just made of particles and wavelets of energy. So there has to be something encoded on matter itself that has caused us to be sequestered into this particular region of the universe so that we can't get out, so that we can't move faster than the speed of light.
And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
Senator Barry Goldwater was in office between 1953 and 1987 as an Arizona state senator. And Goldwater actually goes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and tries to get access to the alien bodies in the crash-retrieved saucer from Roswell, and he's denied access. Barry Goldwater is denied access from Curtis LeMay. Curtis LeMay knows that what this says in the negative space is that why would a general, Curtis LeMay, deny access to a U.S. senator? Because, why? Because there's something to hide there. There's something that senators can't even know about, that presidents can't even know about. But the question is, why are congressmen and senators not allowed to know? And even the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, and Eisenhower, and all of them, why are they not allowed to know the truth about alien saucers and crash retrievals?
And here was one of the old-time developments.
Oh.
Now, I happen to know the guy who put that together.
Mm-hmm. How far does this date back? March? No, Mach 1.2?
I know it doesn't say, but in actuality, it's way, way back. The first,
Really?
we must be at least 30 to 40 years.
60s? After the Roswell crash, in the first week of July of 1947, it is alleged that the alien bodies in the craft are taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. That's where the alien bodies in the craft were taken. What Boyd Bushman is holding up is a document that states that a reverse-engineered, nuclear-powered flying saucer that has a ceiling of over 60,000 feet, a range of 3,000 miles, nuclear-powered, anti-gravity saucer that we reverse-engineered from the alien craft, and he knows who did it. He's testifying. Boyd Bushman is the man who designed the Stinger missile for General Dynamics. He worked for Howard Hughes. He worked for 20 years. He was at Lockheed Martin. He had access to above top secret and top secret files. He knows how to develop and reverse engineer anti-gravity technology and is actually demonstrating in front of us. And here we are for the first time in history. He is showing us proof that at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, we reverse engineered flying saucer technology. In 1959 was the first date this thing flew. I mean, this is incredible. He's giving us what no one has ever been able to find before. And he won't say, that it was an alien craft, obviously. I mean, it could have been something that was ours. But if we have anti-gravity, if we've developed anti-gravity at Lockheed or, any level, secret level of the Black Ops, divisions of research, why aren't we using it in the war? Why doesn't the F-117 levitate? Or does the F-117 levitate?
Well, the key question from a physics point of view is a matter of another force. Mm-hmm. The question is are there more forces beyond the 4 or 5 forces that we're all acquainted with? the strong force, that's holding
Yeah, strong force, I understand that.
The strong force and weak force, electromagnetic force and gravity. Well, we have been under some development recently where the astronomers have begun to analyze the motion of galaxies apart.
Right.
And we have identified that indeed the galaxies are being impelled apart. We used to say at increasing velocities. The recent data and the better data says that there's still a repulsing force. Well, a repulsing force is an anti-gravity.
It's stronger than gravity.
Literally. Newton says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? Well, okay. If that's true, then I don't know. Don't let me get this thing lost, but if I let this fall on this carpet, if I had a concrete, if its elasticity was the same, then the best that it could do would be to come back to the same height that I drop it from, right?
Right.
And if it came out higher than that, and then I would have violated Newton's law of equal and opposites, right? Okay, I need your hand. This is a standard tube, and you're going to catch these. These are magnets. Okay, now do notice that this is copper. It does not care about copper at all. It is not like iron. This one just
straight through,
right on
less
through.
than a second.
And this one,
1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 4 seconds.
No, that's true. So now,
so you're canceling out gravity.
Well, by something that cares little about magnetism.
The two opposing forces in here.
It's a matter of what is the aluminum doing? Why does it care about moving electrons?
Right.
Similarly, over here, I have aluminum.
On May 24th, 2003, Jeff Willis got some of the most amazing footage of a daylight flying saucer I've ever seen. I mean, he just grabs his camera just in time, he goes in the house, and he comes out and he catches this thing. As soon as he turns the camera on, he's videotaping this thing, and it's just going behind the house. And he's got the camera on zoom, and you can see, when you zoom in, that this flying saucer is on its side. It's not, lying flat like we think it should be. It's lying on its side. And if you really think about it, if you were flying from outer space and you came up right next to the Earth and you parked next to the curvature of the Earth, it would look sideways. It would look like it's in the wrong position. That would mean that the occupants of the craft, the pilots, are not experiencing gravity as we experience gravity. They have been able to cancel gravity out. They are able to transform their mass and reduce the mass gravity effect down towards zero. And when the mass gravity effect is at zero, there are no g-forces for the pilot on sudden acceleration, stops, and turns. They also don't experience gravity, so it has no effect on them. And you're saying there's something I've never seen before. When it goes behind the house...
When it goes behind the house, you don't see it anymore. All of a sudden, it's going to do a reverse U-turn and come back out.
Okay, let's see what it does. So here it is. Now, when we zoom in on this footage, as Willis points out, it's not over yet. That the UFO kind of ricochets around and goes way further back up in the sky, and it takes him a while, but he actually finds it again, and it's way up there. It's in the middle of the sky. And what's incredible about this is you can see these shimmering kind of wavelets around it. It looks so similar to what I saw in Berkeley, California that day. This is a daylight flying saucer, a metallic disc. Some of the best footage I've ever seen in my life.
Whoa. Holy shit. Oh my god.
Whoa, I'm getting a series of lights right there. I got it. It's moving. You got it, Pat? Yeah. Dude, I got 5 lights going left, just like the Josh thing. I got it on tape, and it was recording. Oh, there it is, over the left. Watch it.